Have you ever imagined what your child would look like? Well, imagine if you could walk into a doctor's office and tell them what gender you wanted your child to be or what you wanted your child to look like. Because it is possible to genetically modify a baby, it is important to know what a genetically modified baby is, how they are made, and what types of reasons people choose to do this. First, I want to tell you what a genetically modified baby is. The Oxford Dictionary defines this as a baby whose genetic makeup has been selected in order to eradicate a particular defect or to ensure that a particular gene is present. Dr. Justo Aznar from the Institute of Life Sciences of the Catholic University of Spain defines a designer baby as a spectrum of techniques to choose a child's sex, physical appearance, intelligence, athletic ability, or to prevent them from developing diseases. An Opposing Viewpoints article from Gale defines a designer baby as a child who is developed from the embryo outside the human body in order to achieve certain desired traits or characteristics. Now that you know what a genetically modified baby is, I want to tell you how they are created. The genetics home reference describes the process step by step in a way that is easiest to break down and understand. First, an embryo, which is a fertilized egg, is created using IVF, which means that they take sperm and an egg and place them in a petri dish to create an embryo outside the human body. Next, they remove a single cell from the embryo within the first 5 days of creation. Then they genetically test the cell. Lastly, based on this test, the parents will decide whether to discard the embryo or to implant it into the mother's womb. The Congressional Research Service describes the whole process in more detail by explaining technology involved in this. A recent approach found for going about the process is known as CRISPR, which I'm going to call CRISPR to make it easier. CRISPR is found in bacteria, and it captures pieces of DNA from viruses and uses these pieces to create a CRISPR array. The arrays allow DNA to remember a virus if it attacks, so it can fight it. Scientists in labs use this process for genome editing. They can cut certain parts of the DNA out using CRISPR and use the DNA's own built-in repair mechanisms to add or delete pieces of the DNA to create a desired gene. To summarize this process, they take a sperm and an egg, they fertilize it in a petri dish to create the embryo outside the human body, and then they take a single cell from the embryo and test it. And then the parents will decide, based on that test, if they'd like to keep the embryo or implant it into the mother's womb. Now that you know how these babies are made, I want to tell you why people choose to have these babies. You may be asking yourself why someone would want a designer baby, especially because it's really expensive and it has a really in-depth process. An article from Opposing Viewpoints on Gale states a few of the many reasons couples would choose to do this. One of the most popular reasons is because certain diseases are hereditary, and having a genetically modified baby can ensure that your child won't get a disease such as cancer, if it's hereditary. Also, from Opposing Viewpoints, some families have sick children, for example, a child with leukemia. A good option for kids with leukemia is a bone marrow transplant, but a lot of times it's really hard to find a match for a bone marrow transplant. So the parents decide to create a sibling that would be a match for their first child with the leukemia so that they can have a transplant like that. And finally, an article from Justo Aznar states that one of the popular reasons that parents decide to go through this is so that they can choose their gender or physical features. As you can see, there are several reasons why people choose to have a designer baby. Genetically modified babies are going to become more popular in the future, so it is important to understand what they are, how they are made, and why people choose to have them. Designer babies allow parents to choose certain aspects of their child's genetic makeup, and as it becomes more popular, many people are asking themselves, is this ethical, and will it need to be regulated?
Very good.